Succulent plants are pretty strange by nature. They grow with all sorts of bizarre, mutant, alien kind of growth forms. That's what makes them quite appealing to me, and I imagine for you too. Today though, I'm going to look at some of the strangest plants on the planet. Plants that sit at the very top of my wish list. Plants, unfortunately, that I know that I'll never own. Today, I'm going to look at what those plants are, why I'll never own them, and then I'll share with you probably the closest thing in my collection that I'll ever get. So let's go for a little bit of a meander through some of the most genuinely monstrous, wonderfully beautiful, and utterly unique plants that one might ever hope to own in their lifetime. Number 5 on my wish list is a cactus called Strophocactus wittii. Why do I want it? Well, you only have to take a look at it. It's a fascinating epiphytic cactus. That is, it grows in trees down next to the Amazon River in Brazil, one of only 3 cacti that live in that part of the world. And if you look at its growth form, you can see that it grows with these almost flat paddle-like stems that wrap themselves around trees above the waterline. Absolutely fantastic. And when it gets a bit of sun, those stems turn an almost wonderful crimson red colour. Absolutely amazing. Fantastically, they have this quite unique seed dispersal system. What they do, their seeds float, and so when they flower, and I'll talk about how they flower in a moment, when they flower, they drop their seeds into the waters of the Amazon and they float down the river until they find a tree trunk to lodge themselves into and germinate. Now these plants are commonly known as the Amazonian moonflower. It's because, like many cacti, they flower only at night time, and they only do it for one night of the year. It's a big event, as you can imagine, pollinated by moths, as are many of these night flowering plants. Now, why am I never going to own a Strophocactus wittii? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Number 1, it's exceedingly rare in cultivation. It's not unknown to cultivation, but it is very, very rare. The second reason is they're kind of a tropical plant, and tropical epiphytes don't necessarily align with my lazy man approach to growing arid plants. I do have some epiphytic cacti. I'll share one with you in a second, but this plant in particular is known for being a little bit touchy, and in the temperate climate of Sydney, I'm not convinced that it would do too well out exposed in the open. I suspect this is a plant that's going to need quite a specialised humid indoor environment, probably better suited to indoor plant growers than an arid plant maniac like myself. When it comes to my closest plant, let me share this one with you. This is called Lepismium cruciform. Now it is another epiphytic cactus. This one comes from South America, typically around Paraguay and that part of the world. Very easy to grow. And the thing that I love about it, and the reason why I think it's similar, apart from growing in trees like your Strophocactus, when exposed to the sun you can see it gets that same rich, almost wine-coloured stem. And the beautiful thing about them is that the areoles, where the spines typically are, they have these thick tufts of fur, which gives them, I think, quite a unique look. They're not particularly rare, certainly not as rare as a Strophocactus, but they're a joyful plant to have in a backyard. I give it no special care whatsoever. It just hangs up in a tree, gets watered by the rain, and generally seems to look after itself. This one's even got a little fruit on it. Maybe I can propagate it from seed. We'll see what happens. Anyway, Strophocactus wittii, number 5 on the wish list, and a very unique plant indeed. Now I love massive plants, even massive plants that I'll never see reach their maturity in my lifetime, and that speaks to wish list item number 4. It's a plant called Dendrosenecio Kilimanjaro. These are members of the Asteraceae family, makes them related to plants like sunflowers and daisies, as well as our succulents like Senecio and Othonna. Why do I love Dendrosenecio? Take a look at this plant, that iconic silhouette of these huge towering palm-like things emerging from the clouds on Mount Kilimanjaro. I can't think of anything more fascinating. Absolutely delight to behold. Why am I never going to own it though? Well, number one, it's completely unknown to cultivation. And number two, like many alpine species, these ones have very particular care requirements. I'm not going to be able to replicate the natural habitat of a cloud forest elevated high up on the side of Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa in my humble greenhouse. So even if they were in cultivation, I have no doubt that the thing would probably last about 3 minutes in my care before keeling over and dying. It's a shame because it's an utterly iconic looking plant, which kind of speaks to what I reckon is maybe my closest that I have in my collection. That's right, this is a Dracaena cinnabari. Basically, that iconic vision of Socotra Island. Now, as you can see, this is a long way from maturity. And that's what I mean by these very slow growing, massive plants. I don't mind owning them, knowing full well that I'm never going to see this look like one of those amazing plants growing in habitat. Maybe my grandkids or their grandkids will be able to truly appreciate this plant when it reaches that size. But there's a certain something, a certain je ne sais quoi about growing a plant, knowing its potential. And that's why I love having a couple of these Dracaena cinnabaris in my collection. Unfortunately, I can't imagine I'm ever going to have a Dendrosenecio sitting alongside them. But a man can dream, right? Number 3 on that wish list is a plant unlike anything else I can imagine. It's a plant called Azorella compacta, and it's not succulent, I have to admit that, but it looks kind of like it could be. Now, this is a plant that grows with this amazing cushioned mound form high up in the Andes in South America. It's a member of the Apiaceae family, puts it alongside carrots and the like. Now, why does it grow like that? That cushioned mounding form actually protects it from the harshest of the alpine desert's climatic conditions, like low temperatures. It conserves heat within that mound, and the high winds, which, as you can imagine, just shear over the top of that little green blob. Why am I never going to own this plant? Well, there are a few very obvious reasons. Number one, it is exceptionally slow growing. They grow at about 1.5 centimeters a year. Can you imagine how old plants like some of these big massive green blobs appearing on the screen would be? The second thing, of course, is that it is utterly unknown to cultivation. Nobody grows these things, and the reason for that, of course, is just like the Dendrosenecio, they have very particular alpine requirements in terms of their growth. They demand those low temperatures, that lack of precipitation. You can't just add them to a random collection of plants and expect them to thrive, because they occupy a very specific ecological niche. Now, when it comes to my closest plant to Azorella, realistically, it's probably just a humble carrot. I can't think of anything else that sits anywhere near it. However, there are some plants that I could potentially get my hands on that mimic that cushioned growth. There's a fantastic cactus species. It's called Punetia lagopus. Related to your opuntias, it's also an alpine growing cactus from South America, grows in the same sort of environment, in fact, as your Azorellas. It's a fantastic example of convergent evolution because they also form these huge kind of cushion mats over time. They do exist in cultivation. They're very, very rare, and seeds are exceedingly difficult to germinate. So even then, I may have no luck whatsoever, but I reckon my chances with a Punetia are probably noticeably higher than Azorella. Higher than 0% anyway, if not much more than that. So that's number 3 on the wish list. If you're enjoying the show, there's a couple of things you can do to support us. Number 1, hit subscribe if you're not already. Number 2, check out this cool merch. Whole bunch of mad t-shirts and jumpers and all sorts of fun stuff going on. And number 3, you might be interested in the Patreon. Bonus episodes every single week. And also, it's the exclusive place where you can get the Arid zine. Issue 1 is already out. It's got some articles on hard-growing plants and Pachypodium lemerii, and I'm hard at work on issue number 2, which is going to be coming out in the springtime. You can see all that at aridzine.com.au. Anyway, let's get back into that countdown. Here we go. Number 2 on that wish list of exceptionally rare plants is a cactus that I reckon is about as heavy metal a cactus as you can possibly imagine. It's called Brachycereus nesioticus. And as you can see, they grow with these fiercely orange spines, which as they mature kind of turn a deep black. Now, what's particularly interesting about this plant is that it grows in the Galapagos Islands, and it's what we call a pioneer plant. It is one of the first species that will occupy brand new lava fields. How epic is that? Absolutely amazing. And that, realistically, not its appearance, but the general heavy metal vibe is why I would love to have one of these plants in my collection. But again, realistically, I reckon I never will. The reason being is twofold. Number one, it is completely illegal to export any plant material, including seeds, out of the Galapagos Islands. It's a protection measure to prevent any sort of loss of biodiversity in what is a rich ecological system. That being said, there is a very, very small number of these Brachycereus plants out in cultivation today. Why aren't they therefore more widespread? Because they are exceptionally difficult to cultivate. They're incredibly picky on their own roots, and even as grafted plants, they don't take to grafting particularly well. So the end result is there's very little viability in mass propagation of these plants. And so as cool as they look and as cool as the vibe might be, realistically, they're never going to enter into widespread cultivation, and they will remain in those very closely held private collections, unlikely ever to end up in this greenhouse anyway. When it comes to the closest plant that I have, well, it's kind of a little bit sad because I have your beautiful rainbow cactus. This is your Echinocereus rigidissimus rubrispinus, and the reason I've picked this one is, well, number one, it is a somewhat distant relative of your Brachycereus. They sit in the same kind of tribe of the cactus family. And number two, it has that same sort of coloured spine impact. In this case, it's more of a reddy pink than the orange. But it's not really the appearance that I care about. It's the heavy metal vibe of growing on exposed lava that draws me to the Brachycereus. And so I can't think of anything at all that sits in that same space. And so here I am just having to settle with what's a beautiful plant, but I wouldn't call this one heavy metal whatsoever. Now, it should come as no surprise that the plant that sits at the very top of my wish list is by far the most mutant looking thing you can possibly imagine. It's the stuff out of nightmares. Number one, I am talking about a plant called Hydnora africana. Get a load of this thing. Now, what it is, it's actually a parasitic plant. It doesn't grow stems, doesn't grow leaves, it doesn't photosynthesize on its own whatsoever. What it does is it attaches itself to a host plant, a euphorbia growing in southern Africa, and it leaches its nutrients straight out of that plant. How utterly weird is that? But of course, where it really shines is its flowers. Honestly, I can't imagine anything quite like it. It looks like some sort of demonic thing erupting out of the soil with sharp white teeth and this fleshy red throat. Absolutely crazy stuff, right? And I can't help but love it. Now, I am never going to own this plant, and I am accepting of that fact. How do I know? Well, there's only ever been one record of anyone being able to cultivate this plant. Someone who collected seeds of the Hydnora from habitat in Africa, sowed them amongst euphorbia plants in pots, and then had to wait many, many years until it reached sexual maturity and then erupted with that vicious looking flower from the soil. And even then, I don't think it was particularly long lasting. Happened in a university setting as well. So you can only imagine the sorts of very specific care provided to ensure it got to that stage. Now, I'm accepting of the fact that I'm never going to own a Hydnora of my own. So So what's the closest thing I've got to it? Well, I reckon you have to look at your asclepiads, something like this Huernia loesseriana. Now, they're not parasitic, but when you see them flower, you do get that same sort of monstrous demogorgon kind of vibe, and that's still a lot of fun, even if it doesn't quite encapsulate the true horror of something bursting out of the soil and leaching its nutrients off a host, kind of vampirically. I still love this plant, certainly no hidden aura. So that's the wish list for you. All plants that I'm never going to own, but they are so fantastically bizarre, I couldn't help but share them with you today. I hope you've enjoyed taking this little meander through some of the most unique and alien looking plants in existence in the world today. And I hope you'll join me next time, Monday night, Australian time, for the next episode of Arid Zen. I'm Michael, I'll catch you next time.